Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of Rebecca and Rebecca. My name is Rebecca Yager, coming to you from Dallas, Texas, and my partner in crime from Indiana is Rebecca Reed. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, Rebecca. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Hope your holidays were fantastic.
Of course.
Wonderful. Well, we are just tickled pink to have Dineen Miller with us today. And earlier this month, we reviewed her book, Bloom to be Messy. And now we're excited to talk to her about her writing. But first, hi, Dineen, by the way.
Hi.
I was going to read your bio and just ignore you. So let's hear about you a little bit, and then we'll begin our conversation with you. So Dineen Miller is an Amazon best-selling and award-winning author of both fiction and nonfiction, but only recently discovered she has a sublime addiction to writing and reading romantic comedies. In addition to these, she's been known to write romantic suspense and dabbled with thrillers and fantasy under her pen name of Nina Roth. Needing additional outlets for her creativity, and she is mighty creative, y'all. She has designed several coloring books. I happen to have one right here. Anyway, several coloring books under her own name and her pen name, Humanity Art, and has crocheted too many Afghans to count. No, she does not have cats, but she's a dog mom to two furry rescues that answer to Wiggle Butt and Snuggle Boy, and she's married to a punny guy who thinks she's unique, and she is unique, and she's wonderful. And Dineen, we're glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me. Love being here.
So that's great. All right, I got to start with your dog's names. They answer to Wiggle Butt and Snuggle Boy.
Snuggle Boy. Well, River is our girl, and she is a boxer whippet mix. And when she gets really excited, her butt wiggles so fast that her legs slide on the floor. And Riley is our other rescue, and he is the biggest snuggle monster there is. He loves to position himself next to you and pop his head under your chin and just wiggle in there and stay there. So they're just, they're my fur babies. My kids are grown and in their own lives, so I have replacement babies until I get grandkids.
Well, I don't know. Rebecca, sounds like Ziva would be friends with Dineen's dogs.
Ziva, yeah, she's snuggly, which is hard because she weighs 165 pounds. So,
ooh, wow, that's a lot of dogs.
Snuggle, but snuggling with her does not work out very well for the person being snuggled. So,
now, mine don't weigh more than about 50 pounds, so yeah.
But Ziva's always trying to get in on our videos, which is why I say that. Ziva, are you there? There you are. There's Ziva. There she is. So yeah, we're used to Ziva being part of our little Rebecca and Rebecca group here. Okay.
I love it. I love dogs so much.
So Dineen, I just learned something new about you, that you lived in Switzerland for a while.
Yeah.
When and why were you there?
We moved to Switzerland in it was early 1999, and we were at the time living in Tennessee, and we had some friends who had moved over there, him mainly because of his work. My husband and him were both in the computer industry, computer programmers. So one day they reached out to us. He reached out to my husband saying they needed more programmers there. Will we be interested? And our daughters were like 4 and 8 at the time, and it just seemed like an amazing opportunity to do something like that, to live abroad for a while. So we went for it.
I think that's fantastic.
What part of Switzerland was it?
Sorry?
What part of Switzerland was it?
We lived right outside of Zurich. We were there for about 3.5 years, and it was an amazing experience. Not without challenges. There were definitely challenges for one of our oldest daughters. She had some challenges in the school because we didn't put them in international school. They went into the local school. So we had some challenges there, but overall it was an incredible experience. We really loved it.
I think
I've
that's
been to
awesome.
Switzerland once.
Yeah.
We were just traveling though, and we went to Lucerne. So we've never been to Zurich, but it was beautiful. So
I
I
love
love
Lucerne
Switzerland.
too. Yeah, I did. It's a beautiful country. We
Mhm.
visited a lot of castles. We ate a lot of chocolate. Um, drove through a blizzard once.
Yeah,
So,
and you're in the East Coast, you're in Florida. And
yes.
so that was quite a, I'm sure
Yeah.
weather-wise.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, it was a new experience.
Living abroad usually is. All right. I love that you say you're living your dream, because even as a kid, you wanted to be an author, you wanted to be a designer.
Mhm. Yeah.
How do you live your dream? Most of us don't get to do that, or it takes us till we're 60 to do it.
I don't know. I think I have to give, God a lot of credit for that. At one point, I didn't even realize that I had stepped into that until you kind of reminded me. So, by the way, did you realize? No. I think I believe a big part of it is, we're wired towards certain things. I believe we're all creative. I mean, how could we not be? If we're going to believe what the Bible says, that we're made in God's image, then that means we're creative. Sadly, we live in a society that tells us how to be creative, and it's very limited in how we can be creative. Even I think in some way, shape, or form, however anybody's living their life on a daily basis, they're being creative. If you're putting a meal together for your family, that's creative. If you're trying to figure out how to arrange a system more efficiently at your job, that's creative. There's just no limitation to it. So I think it's just having the courage to pursue what we're passionate about. The reality check is that doesn't mean it will be easy. It's often fraught with challenges, that we have to overcome, and disappointments at time. Because sometimes, we can pursue, it doesn't exactly pan out the way we hoped or how we imagined. But I think there's something to be said with pursuing what we love and what we're passionate about, whether it's in our job or whether it's in our free time or whatever it is that we can do to just fill our tank and fill our soul. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I was just about to say that we would have said it in stereo, Rebecca. No, but I do, and I do think, especially as authors, and those in the creative, anybody in the field, it is to get over your fear, to get over the paralysis. That fear can paralyze you,
Right.
the victim, and even stop you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I think what you said too about society, telling us how to be creative, that's really true. And I see that so much with students coming through the school system. They might have been super creative when they were younger, but they've been told so many times to stop, 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 because they wanted to do something that was going to make a mess, or they wanted to do something that was going to be inconvenient for whoever was watching them.
Yeah.
And so they were plugged into a screen somewhere and taught not to be creative. And I just saw actually there was a survey that I just saw on about education, and this guy did this study about how many kids qualified as geniuses when they were young, and then every year they got older, fewer and fewer of those same kids were considered geniuses.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
they were judging it on creativity and to be able to like solve problems and puzzles and those kinds of things, and they basically were trained out of it by the way we teach kids how to think and do things nowadays. And I believe that's true. I 100%.
I
Kids
think
can't think for themselves anymore.
Yeah, I think the thing that lingers in my mind most clearly is when we lived in California, my eldest daughter, she's an artist. I mean, she's a growing artist, and has done things in the entertainment industry as an animator, but her passion is for her own art, and she's really going after it, and she's getting in shows in New York and Seattle and LA. She's just, she's really done well. But when she was in high school, she had a friend who she talked about was an amazing artist, and she wasn't allowed to pursue her art because her parents wanted her to be a dentist, because that would give her an income and pay bills. And so she wasn't allowed to go to college to pursue art, even though that she was extremely gifted in that area. And that just broke my heart to hear of a young person being stifled in such a way that it just, I feel like kids, even my daughter, the way her brain worked, she would make doodles in her margins of her notes when she took notes in class, and all but one of her teachers would penalize her for goofing off. But it was her way of memorizing the material. And only one of her teachers understood that. So we actually had to pull her out of that and put her in a different, like a middle college situation where she could do high school and art, because she was just so inhibited and not allowed to explore her talent. So and I feel bad for the teachers too, because I feel like they're stuck too. They don't get to explore those avenues with their students and help them to be creative. I think back when I was in high school, I had so many teachers that encouraged my creativity, and I feel like we've somehow lost that, and our teachers suffer as much as our kids. So
I think kids are, nowadays there's so many standards, and they're just like, you got to teach these standards, and it's like, yeah, but you can teach those standards in a different, like, you don't have to just rote memorization of things. It doesn't help anybody anyway. Everybody just forgets it.
yeah.
We'd be so much better off if we combined, combined all those classes into where you had projects that were multidisciplinary, and they could explore, the war with making some kind of art about it, writing a story about it, just there's so many things that could be done, and kids could learn. They could do math, figure out, I don't know, there's a way to combine all that stuff into one thing instead of compartmentalizing it, where kids would actually learn something and actually apply what they learn to make some kind of project or presentation or something that means something, instead of what we do now. I'm in the school system, but I still feel that way. I don't think we do school correctly in the United States. I think there are some schools that try to do stuff like that, but it's become a graduation factory, and all that anybody cares about are the numbers, because the state pays us for graduates, and all we have to do is get them through the system, and that's how we get our money. And if we don't have that money, we can't actually have a school. So it's like there's so much pressure from the top down and from the bottom. There's just pressure everywhere for to do certain things. I am very fortunate because I teach Spanish, and I don't have all those tests and all that stuff I have to worry about, and I'm the only Spanish teacher, so like I teach my class however I want, and nobody says anything. When they come in to evaluate me, they don't know what I'm saying anyway, so they can't really tell me. So and I don't care. It's like, as long as I get a decent evaluation, I don't really care, because there are days when we don't even speak Spanish though, but there are days when those kids are so wound up with something that's happened that it's just like, we just have to talk about what that is. It's more important to just deal with that, because that's their life right then, and they're not going to think about what I'm telling them anyway. So
Right.
I don't know, but I have the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
And
see, we need more teachers like Rebecca. But before we get too off the subject about the educational system,
I know
we need a show just about that.
we could do a show just about that. That's for sure. But I let's keep talking about creativity though, because creativity is important. And Dineen, another thing you've said is writing is play for you, so
Yeah.
it keeps you motivated. How do you get yourself in that kind of mindset? Because writers, anybody who knows writers, unless you're J.K. Rowling or Stephen King, do not make enough money.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to get into the mindset of, I know you're still trying to make money, but it's still your playtime.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I have a day job. I still have to do design work, which thankfully I love, just about as much as I love writing. That for me has actually been a recent mind shift, because I kind of categorized writing to be part of the business. And so I was scheduling it and trying to fit it in around my design work and client work. And it always felt like such a struggle. And I would never quite get as many words written in a week as I'd hope. And I wasn't looking to pop out, massive amounts of words. I was trying to, maybe just accomplish like 3,000 to 5,000 words a week in this, schedule of, write Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays are dedicated to design work. And then the afternoons was all the marketing, because, whether you're traditionally or independently published, marketing is just going to be part of the job description. So I went on kind of a self-made writing retreat with a friend who's also, she happens to be my aunt as well, and she's a romance author. And so I went and spent a week with her, and just went up with the mindset of, I'm on vacation. I get to I don't have to take care of other things. I don't have to do laundry. I don't have to keep track of my husband. I can just, write. The idea was to write, that we were going to see how much writing we could get done and just hang out. And because we always have so much to talk about. And so I took my iPad with me. That was it. I kept it close. Whenever I felt, whenever there was a moment and I felt like writing, I would write, and just had a good time with it. And totally shocked that in that week I wrote 20,000 words, over 20,000 words in that week. And it didn't feel like work. It just felt like I got to play. I got to play with my characters and hang out with them. And so when I got back home, I decided that I needed to duplicate that in the sense of the attitude and my mindset. I didn't have the expectation to get that much done at home. There was I knew that wouldn't be possible. I'd burn myself out, and I had no desire to do that. So, but I went into it and just threw the schedule out, just threw trying to schedule it in, and just made it the first thing I would work on in the morning. If I had a project in process, that would be my iPad would be by my comfy chair where I'd have my coffee and have my quiet time. And then I'd take my iPad and I'd get to play. That was my time to play. And I would pop out anywhere from like 1,000 to 3,000 words. So that first week back, I wrote like 12,000 words in that week. And so it showed me that, okay, it's possible to do more than I imagined or expected, with that mindset of, this is not work. This is my play. This is where I get to just let my creativity run wild and do whatever I want. Because even when I do design work for clients, I'm still being very creative, but I'm still trying to fit within a parameter, because we're, book cover, it needs to be to market, it needs to be to their genre, it needs to, be the proper thing so that it will sell their book. But when it's writing, it's all mine. It's, it's my characters, my story. I get to do what I want. And since I've done that, now there are times that I don't write as much, just because if I'm in between books, I'm catching up with things. But when I'm in a book and I get to just play with my story, it's that's somehow worked for me. I was shocked. I'd followed all the advice from all my coaches or, other authors and writers, and I just found what worked for me.
And I think that's important because it goes for any writer, it goes to what works for you, what works for someone else. The scheduling or whatever may not work for you. And it sounds to me like if you write from your comfy chair, then you have your office, which I presume is where you're sitting now, that's your business side. So you can almost separate. I find that I can't, it's hard for me to write in the same place where I do my day job.
Yeah, I've always tried to write in my office because I have it set up really nice. It's cozy. I have a big window to my backyard. But it's also where I do my design work. It's also where I do all the marketing, and it's also where all my email is. So yeah, so separating it really made a difference.
Yeah. Something to consider. All right, we got to get to Bloom to be Messy. We have covered a lot of topics already. Let's get to the book that Rebecca and I talked about earlier this month that we both loved, by the way.
Thank you.
Thought it was real good. Was there any specific inspiration, or what drew you to, again, I know you're in Florida, so I know your geography probably helped, but
Yeah.
And switching from, you did fantasy and romantic suspense into this rom-com world.
Yeah. So that was, it was a couple of years ago. I just was really struggling to, figure out what I was doing, and writing was hard. It was really hard. I felt like I kept hitting a wall, and I had joined author ad school a few years ago, and one of the mentors I had through that, she just said to me one day, she said, you know what, just take a step back and just write something for fun. I think that was the beginning of my play journey, really, to come think about it. So I did that. I stepped back, and I just started writing something for fun, and it turned out to be a Christmas rom-com. And I was just kind of like, oh, wow, I never thought about writing something like that. I've always done, romantic suspense, thriller, stuff like that. Even though in the first clue, I think that really clicked in my head, and being in the school was, they kept, and we always hear it, read what you write. Well, I could not read what I wrote. I didn't want to read in that genre anymore. So I started just reading rom-coms, and as I was writing them, I started out in third person and realized as I was going along that I really needed to switch to first person if I wanted to fit into the genre. So I thought, okay, well, let's give it a shot, and discovered I love it. I felt like my voice was released when I made that switch. It was easier, it flowed faster, it worked for me. So as I was finishing the last book in my first rom-com series, that book was The Friendly Disaster, which is the characters are loosely based on my daughter and her husband.
Do they know this?
Yes, they know. It's dedicated to them too. I was talking to my daughter about some part of the story, and she was on her way to visit a friend of hers who lives in Nevada, in this little town called Loveland, Nevada. And she told me her story of how she took over her grandmother's floral shop because her grandmother just wasn't in great health, and she really couldn't run it anymore. And what she didn't realize at the time was that her grandmother had not been really doing much with it for a while. So the shop was not in good shape. But she took the shop over. She would, as a child growing up, she would help out at the shop during, key times like Mother's Day, things like that. So she was familiar with it. So she took it over, and she turned this shop into a hub in this little town. I did a video interview with her, and it's on YouTube because her story is so inspiring of what she brought to her community, because the this little town is a good hour to 3 hours from any kind of shopping. So like if you need groceries, you got an hour's trek ahead of you. If you want to get, specific kinds of clothing or gifts or shopping, you've got 2 to 3 hours to travel and do these things. So she started with flowers, but she listened to her community and their needs, and she started putting more things in the shop. And as things improved, she was able to redo the shop, the flooring, and spruce it up and bring it back to life. And it's become this central hub that's part of the community, this little community that they love to send flowers to each other. So when I heard the story, I thought, oh my gosh, that's the heroine for Bloomed. And so I reached out to her and just did all kinds of, the first interview with her, took a lot of notes, got, just to build the story and get a feel for it. And then I, wrote the story that became the inspiration behind the heroine for Kate and for Amanda, or Mandy, as she's nicknamed, just how, she took over. It was her aunt who basically raised her and suddenly passed away. So she took over the shop and she couldn't sell it for a year. She had to run it before she could sell it and go back to her life in New York City. So, and that's how that story was birthed.
I love that there's such a real life inspiration there. And something Rebecca and I have commented on your story as well as others. We love when the town, or when there's just these vibrant side characters that just bring everything to life. And Sarabella's like that. The little niece, Kate's niece, Ileana, is like that.
Yeah, she's a fun little kid. When I started, Cade's he was kind of a crossover character from the book The Friendly Disaster, because there's actually a character in that book called Mav, and he's a metal worker. And I loved his character so much, but when I realized I needed to make that shift to first person, I realized I couldn't carry that series on, that I needed to start a new one. But I wanted his character so much, so I changed him a little bit and made him the hero of this book. And when that first scene where he's dealing with his mother and he has to take on this 4-year-old, that's where it started. I was like, oh my gosh, what has this guy dealt with? And then more, he kind of revealed more to me about, his brother, the motorcycle accident, how it scarred him physically and emotionally. And it was just, these two characters just came to life, and, I had to write their story.
Well, I think we really liked it. I liked, how I liked how you were able to pull in all of the other artists, that she took, especially the glass mangoes. I mean, that part, how she pulled those in, and then she got Mav to Cade to make part of it, and then she did part of it, and how it sort of became like a group effort, and she brought everybody up just by her own creativity and how that worked. I thought that was just phenomenal and such a beautiful metaphor, for how that can work. And it was neat. So for the glass mangoes, where did you come up with that idea?
I just thought of it.
That was amazing.
Because it was just, I was trying to think of something that would fit in the series name is Messy Love on Mango Lane. So it seemed fitting that, okay, let's make this town, a mango. That's one of their main things that goes on. After living in California, and, we live near Gilroy, which is the garlic capital of the world. It was just, there was a lot of past experience and reference that I could draw upon for that. So
that's interesting. Well, with this series, we will mention, we again reviewed Bloom to be Messy, and that was book 1 in the series. And there's Rescue to be Messy, and then you did a Christmas little novella. or a very messy Christmas.
Yeah.
And then you're doing a reader magnet if people sign up for your newsletter as well, right?
Yes, yes. I
part
just
of
got that done and gonna set it up so I can start giving it away. That's brewed to be messy, and that's based in the coffee shop, and the bakery makes an appearance in that too.
so,
No.
Yeah.
so it's a fun series. So people need to start with Bloomed, but there everything's out now. So that's what makes it exciting. Is your Rescued
Yeah.
is out, Rescued to be Messy.
Yeah.
The next one's out. In fact, I'm reading that right now, and
And I'm about to start on the next book, which will be technically the third book, because the Christmas book is related material. It's not technically in the next book in the series, it's supplements. But yeah, I'm about to start the next one.
And do you have a title for, is that
that one is Tamed to be Messy.
Okay.
Yeah, and it involves the pet shop. So there will be critters that make an appearance in there, and one of the characters in Rescued, this will be his story. It's one of the lifeguards. That's
okay.
Rescued. Yeah.
Okay.
Which as you read it, you'll figure it out. Huh?
Is it Nick?
Yes, it is Nick.
I guess. Is that a secret? Sorry.
No, I think I love it when readers are like, oh, please tell me Nick's gonna be the next one. I want to hear his story. I was like, yes, I promise. It'll be Nick, he's the one. Yeah. He's going to be an interesting character because his character journey is going to be pretty significant. So
well, and that's what I liked about Mandy and Cade's journey too, because this is a rom-com, it is a light read, it's a feel-good, but there was some depth to these characters and what they were wrestling with, and that's life.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how to write characters any other way, because to me that's what makes it interesting. When we meet people, just like hearing Rebecca's talk about her teaching and the fact that she has days where she realizes she's not going to be teaching, she's going to be the listening ear and the support and encouragement for her students, because she knows that's what they need that day. Those are the things that make characters interesting, because it's true to life and it's what we relate to. And I think that's, as a reader, I love that. I love when I can read characters that I can relate to, or even learn from, seeing how they deal with the situation or what they've dealt with in their past and how they've overcome or persevered. I think there's a lot of richness that we can, even in romantic comedy, we can bring that kind of stuff across.
Well, we were talking about this. I don't know if we actually said it on the review video or not, but I feel like the chick lit that used to be popular, the reason partly that it kind of faded away is that there wasn't a lot of depth to it. It was very superficial. But I think the rom-coms that we're getting now aren't like that. They're more like yours. They have depth and those characters are well developed. And I think we were talking about wondering, because this is very popular right now, but I think it's going to sustain itself just because they're not just the sappy, superficial, little easy. I mean, it's still fun. They're still fun. There's still a lot of laughter and humorous situations, but the depth of the characters and the journeys they're on are real. They're not just superficial. So
yeah.
I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. And it's like in Bloomed, that whole situation where Cade's dealing with his 4-year-old, and especially with the whole, her issues with her competing with a friend to see how long they can hold their bladders. It doesn't go well. That was actually inspired by something I dealt with one of my daughters when she was very young. We had moments like that where it was like I had to bring an additional set of clothes because things went really bad that day. So I love that we can pull stuff in from our lives that adds that kind of three-dimensionality, because we're drawing upon what we've actually dealt with in our lives as mothers, as women, as wives, as friends, all, whatnot. So there's so much there we can pull upon and bring in. So I love pulling upon things in my own experience into these characters, but it does make it easier too to try and bring across the emotions. Although I felt really bad for Cade because he was just he was totally out of his element there, trying to help this little girl get her clothes changed and also be respectful of her and because she may have only been 4, but she was her own little person, and he was trying to honor that.
I have a 4-year-old granddaughter, and trust me, she's her own person. So I related to Ileana so much because my granddaughter is that kind of feisty and that independent already. So.
Yeah, I love her. She surprised me when she showed up in the story. I love it when those characters show up and surprise me.
And it's true, as writers, they can surprise you. And some people not in the writing world don't understand how characters can talk to us or change things. Because Ileana, she didn't start as a 4-year-old, did she? Did she start as a baby or as?
When I first started, when the story started forming in my head, at first she was a baby. And then as it started started feeling the story, I realized she needed to be older because I wanted her to have a voice. I wanted her to be a character that would interact with Cade and push him, kind of push him, because he's thrown into being a father figure, and he realizes along the way it's not just about taking care of her. He suddenly realized that he's the closest thing to her father in her life, because she never got to know her father. He died before she was born. That he had a legacy that he could give her, and that was part of his journey that I loved, was when he realized he had so much more to offer to this little girl than just her daily needs, and making sure she had plenty of tights, because the kid loves tights. And that came from my daughter too. Until she was like 4 or 5, the kid would wear nothing but tights and Disney princess dresses. That was it. That's all she would wear. So I had a lot of fodder to pull on for Ileana. She was a lot of fun to recreate.
But I like that kind of detail, like the detail of the tights, because that's, again, true to life. These characters are really rich. They are 3D, and there's just the depth to them, which was so nice for a rom-com, as Rebecca.
There's a lot of good rom-coms out there. I mean, I'm reading them constantly. I think I read at least probably 2 a week, and there are quite a few authors out there that are really producing really good rom-coms that have great characters. They're deep characters. They're clean books. They don't have steamy scenes in them, but nice steamy kisses. And it's real. It's real. So we get the happily ever after, but we see what they have to work through. Internal things, external things that crop up. Like with Bloom, they had to deal with a hurricane, which pulled upon what we went through with Ian last year, or the year before. So there was lots of, that was last year. This has been a busy year. So just, that the reality of it, and plus that book, I love how the community comes together. And that was inspired by something that happened in our community. A car drove into a restaurant, one of our favorite restaurants. It's like within walking distance of us. A car drove into the restaurant.
Wow.
So, it was when I heard the story of how, the other businesses in this strip mall, came together to help them to clean up. One of the other food restaurants brought food for the workers so they could be fed while they were working, and they were able to reopen within a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
So, and thankfully, there were a couple of people injured, but from what I understand, they're okay. But it was inspiring to hear the story of how this little community came together to help this business get back on their feet. So, and that was that was more inspiration for that story.
Yeah, that's anyway, I'm loving it. And please add yourself to that list of very good rom-com authors.
Aw, thank you.
Definitely worth reading. So if people want to read more or find out more, get your list of books, backtrack to the family disasters one and see what's coming next. Where can people find you?
They can go to my website, which is dineenmiller.com. And I'm also on Amazon. All my books are on Amazon, so you can look up my name there. My first name is spelled Dineen. Last name is easier, Miller. So all of my books are on there, including coloring books and stuff like that. But that series
So back
is
to
available. And if you sign up for my newsletter on my website, you will get a free book that comes along with sign up. So there's some other goodies that I like to give away when people sign up, including the video that I did with the young woman who inspired Bloomed. So, and probably this week, I'll have the new reader magnet up so that they can, you can get the scoop of Aiden and Emily, how they started. They make an appearance in that book in Bloomed. So
yeah, so it's carrying the characters through. Again, we're getting to know them. We like the community, which Rebecca and I said we've talked about before. So so it's nice to be able to revisit some of these characters with you.
I like to carry them through. So
anything else, Rebecca, that you have for Dineen? Any other?
No, I ditto everything that Rebecca said. We really liked it, and I just I enjoyed all of the banter and the fun. I liked the raccoons and the floorboards and all that fun little critter stuff that you did. And the cockroach scene was hilarious, and I thought it was all well done. I just enjoyed it. And I really did like learning about the metal work. I thought that was just so cool to, learn what he did and how that worked. And I thought it was really neat. So I enjoyed the artist community, I think.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
That's it. Well, Dineen, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Again, the book is Bloom to be Messy. And Rescue to be Messy is out. Other ones, just look up DineenMiller.com and find out a list of her books, because she's an author definitely worth watching. So thanks again, Dineen. We're so happy you took the time.
Thank you so much for having me. Loved it.
Wonderful. All right. So next month is January 2024, and Rebecca and I are so excited that Colleen Coble is going to join us with her brand new release of Fragile Designs. So join us next month for a change of pace. We're going from rom-com to romantic suspense, but we're excited Colleen will be with us. And again, Dineen, thank you. And for now, this is Rebecca, and we're signing off. We'll see you next month.
Bye.